So the handwritten signature has served us for centuries. Now that we've firmly arrived in the digital age, what role does the electronic handwritten signature play? Isn't that technology a bit anachronistic?
Well, I would approach this issue the other way around. And it is true that handwriting and signature has been around as a part of human behavior for not centuries, but millennia. And it's not that this part of the human behavior needs to adapt around the advances of technology, but it's the technology that needs to advance and adapt and engulf the already given and established human behavior that includes handwriting and signature execution.
So what advantages then has it to, as you say, adapt, the offline signature or analog signature to the digital world?
Well, first of all, the handwritten signature has been around like forever. So it's part of the human behavior in everyday transactions. It's something that we gradually learn how to do. We don't need to get trained into it. It's part of a person's individuality. And that's how it is being introduced in the legal transactions. From the writer's point of view, it's an extension of themselves. It's a testimony of their identity and their consent in performing any type of legal transactions. So you have that factor. It's part of the human identity. It's easy to execute, and it's something that you always carry with you. So these are good criteria, good characteristics for a biometric means of authentication, right? And then you have the long history of the signature from the legal framework. And we can see that in the European area, for example, since 1677, we have the Statute of Frauds Act in the British Parliament, where there's a set of transactions and contracts that require the execution of a handwritten signature in order for them to be valid. So there's a long history, not only within the person and the writer as part of the human behavior, but also within the legal framework and the very structure of the way government and individual government and institution transactions work. So you have that, it is established, it is safe, and any new type of media, including the electronic handwritten signatures, need to tap into that and draw from that experience and adapt accordingly.
So from your perspective, where would you then recommend using the electronic handwritten signature?
Wherever the proper infrastructure can be deployed, meeting the designated requirements, then yes, it can be used anywhere by anyone.
So, and let me ask you, why would you not use another means of authentication? So why should companies invest in the necessary pen technology and not in another form of electronic signature?
Well, first of all, we need to define what the term electronic signature means. Electronic signature is an umbrella term that describes several different types of digital authentication procedures. And if we look at the ADAS regulation, for example, we can see that one-time passwords, email codes, smart cards, cryptography, and biometric signatures all are parts of the group that we identify as electronic signatures. The issue with electronic signatures in general is that if they do not include any type of biometric data, then they can be decoupled. They can be separated by their designated user, regardless of whether there is consent to this or not. And I can give you a familiar example to everyone, and it has to do with credit cards and how we progressed from the signature to the chip and PIN, for example, and now currently to contactless technology. So when the credit card was first introduced, you had to sign on the receipt in order to authenticate and complete the transaction. So you had biometric data that would prove that it was you performing the transaction. And then to accommodate consumer needs, we moved to the chip and PIN, where all you need to do is know a 4-digit number. The problem with this is that it can be transferable. And obviously, a lot of us have given our credit card to our partners and the PIN code just to facilitate something, to save time and so on. But would we trust such a low-level security option when we are signing a contract or taking a loan of a 5-digit amount, just a chip and pin type of security and technology. That's where the electronic handwritten signature stands out.
But that's also true for all biometric signatures. So why then not use fingerprint or facial recognition or other means of biometric authentication?
Well, that is true. There are other biometric signatures apart from the handwritten or the electronic handwritten signature. The problem with all the other biometric data is that there's no proof of consent and intent. With the handwritten signature, the essence of the handwritten signature is that the person will produce the biometric data on the spot, and therefore proving intent. Other types of biometric data like iris scans or fingerprints and so on, they are related to the person, but they cannot prove consent for the designated transaction.
One question that also comes to mind is, do we actually sign differently on an electronic display than on paper?
Well, that's a valid question in the sense that we have a transition from the typical liquid ink medium on a paper substrate to a plastic tip stylus on a glass surface. But apart from the theoretical approach to this issue, there have been several experiments, and there was a massive experiment performed by the STEFA Group 8 and the European Network of Forensic Handwriting Experts, the results of which were published last year. And the experiment included 3,200 signatures, and the results were that on a forensic level, there is no difference in the signing behavior between the traditional liquid ink signature and the electronic handwritten signature. So from the aspect of the writer, the execution of the signature formation is the same.
Is it then safe to say that the electronic handwritten signature is equivalent to the standard pen and paper handwritten signature?
If we want to approach equivalence, we have to consider the three aspects of the handwritten signature that makes it such an ideal medium for identification and authentication. So first of all, you have the familiarity of the execution of the handwritten signature to the person, to the user. Then you have the long history on the legal framework where the entire legal system has been built around the existence of such a means of authentication. And thirdly, you have an established and scientifically valid methodology to determine authenticity on a forensic level in case of a dispute. All these 3 points are met with the electronic handwritten signature.